We're going in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what up, everyone? Tay here. And we have a lot to talk about today because in my last video, I broke down some of the recent Avengers Doomsday plot leaks that have come out. And there was something that was mentioned in those leaks that I wanted to dig into, but I knew if I did that it would be a whole nother topic that would just be too long to cover and break down. So today I want to dig into that topic that I couldn't get into in the last video, break all of that down, and then also tie it together with a bunch of the other more recent leaks and reports that have been coming out from the Avengers Doomsday set and all sorts of other stuff. So I have a feeling it might turn into a bit of a long one, so I hope you guys watch until the end. And then it is getting close to the end of the month, so remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, then I will get to those in a video before the month ends. So yeah, leave a super thanks if you would like to support the channel, and I will get to those very soon. And then also just real quick, if you are a fan of Marvel and the MCU and you are not subscribed to the channel, you should definitely give it a chance because that is what we talk about here.
A lot of good men trying to get your revenge. Trust me, we don't share the same sense of humor.
We share the same world, don't we? This world you would die to save. It's coming. All you heroes protecting this world. Do you think this is the only world? We'll see what happens when you have to protect this place from the others.
All right, so as you guys know, there has been a ton of different leaks and reports coming out lately detailing the different plot aspects of what is going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. And a lot of these leaks that we've seen have been focusing more on what will happen with the whole Avengers versus X-Men plot of the movie, largely because I think that is a big aspect of what the Russo brothers have been working on and filming over the last few months. But I've already talked a lot about those aspects of the different plot leaks in some of my past videos. So today what I want to do is focus more on the more mysterious elements that was mentioned in several of these different Doomsday leaks regarding the other villains and antagonists we'll see, and the whole multiversal war that will reportedly take place on Earth 616, and how that will tie into Doctor Doom's bigger plans for the Avengers and also the 616 universe. Now, in order to discuss that, I do have to really quickly recap some of the leaked plot stuff that I already did discuss regarding some of the X-Men versus Avengers stuff, but I'll try to make it quick. Okay, so the quick recap of what has been revealed in some of these different recent leaks is that early on in Avengers Doomsday, after the Fantastic Four have already arrived on Earth 616 and met up with the new Avengers, Shuri will end up calling a meeting in Wakanda because she has discovered the incursions and that incursions are happening all throughout the multiverse, and that the X-Men universe that Monica got stuck in at the end of the Marvels is currently on a crash course with Earth 616. That Earth 616 is about to have an incursion with that X-Men universe. And the characters who are said to be present during this meeting in Wakanda will reportedly include M'Baku, Namor, Thor, and Wong, along with Sam, Carol, and Bruce from Sam's Avengers team, as well as Bucky and Yelena from the New Avengers and the full Fantastic Four team. And once Shuri tells all of these characters about the incursions and what's happening, they also reportedly then discover that not only is Monica stuck in that other universe, but that this is also where Doctor Doom seems to be hiding out with Franklin, or at least where they are located at that point in the movie. So what they end up doing, again, according to the leaks, is they put together a plan to go to this other universe with the goal of rescuing Monica and Franklin and also stopping the incursion with this other universe. And that is reportedly the setup for how the Avengers and the Fantastic Four will end up in this divergent X-Men universe from the end of the Marvels, and how this huge battle at the X-Mansion will take place, because presumably the X-Men won't know who the Avengers are, at least at first, and they will think they are being attacked by some villain group, and then a little bit later in the movie, I'm assuming that the Avengers and the X-Men will actually team up together once they realize that they're not enemies. However, before this group can leave on this mission to the X-Men universe, they have to first call in reinforcements for help. So Bucky and Yelena will reportedly call in Bob, while Sam will call in the rest of his Avengers team, which will include She-Hulk, Shang-Chi, and Ant-Man. However, what these past leaks also said is that there will be a large group of characters who end up staying behind on Earth 616 to protect it from a large group of multiversal invaders. And this is one of the things I really wanted to dig into in today's video because I didn't have time to discuss it in the last video. And some of the people that posted these leaks said that they don't have any specific information just yet on who exactly this group of invaders will be, just that there will be another group of multiversal antagonists that will end up coming to Earth 616, and that some of the other heroes end up staying behind to protect the world against those invaders. And I do think that this makes sense because this seems to be one of the plot elements for Avengers Doomsday that was hinted at and set up in the post-credit scene for Captain America Brave New World when Samuel Stearns gave Sam that ominous warning about the multiverse and the multiversal invaders who would be coming for this world. Now, according to these leaks, at least some of the heroes who will end up staying behind to protect Earth will include the other new Avengers, so John Walker, Alexei, and Ava, along with Wong and the other sorcerers, the rest of the forces from Wakanda and Talokan, as well as several other heroes from the 616 universe who haven't been specified. And we know that some of the different actors who will play the X-Men in Avengers Doomsday, that at least some of them have already wrapped their filming for the movie. But the filming schedule on Avengers Doomsday is reportedly scheduled to continue on until at least the end of the year. So it sounds like there's still a lot left to film, and I do think there's a good chance that some of the other actors who haven't been officially announced yet or officially confirmed yet will be some of those characters that will be involved in this whole multiversal war sequence that will reportedly be happening on Earth 616. And I'm just guessing here, but some of the characters that could be included in that are some of the Young Avengers characters like Kate Bishop or Miss Marvel, as well as some of the past Avengers characters like Clint and Rhodey and Vision. Then there's also Star-Lord, who we know is still living on Earth with his grandfather in Missouri, so I definitely think there's at least a possibility that he could show up. Not to mention one of the bigger characters, Spider-Man. And I know a lot of people have been wondering whether or not Tom Holland is actually going to appear in Avengers Doomsday because he hasn't been officially confirmed yet. But according to all the reports from numerous different sources we've heard, it sounds like he will definitely 100% be in the movie. It just hasn't been officially confirmed yet by Marvel Studios. So, yeah, there's the preamble. And with all that said, the bigger question I have regarding all of this is who specifically will these multiversal invaders be that come to Earth 616, and how will this tie into Doctor Doom's overall plan for the movie? So on that note, let's move along and we will dig into these massive details that have come out in these new leaks regarding what will happen with Doctor Doom and the Incursions and the different heroes and characters of the 616 universe in Avengers Doomsday. All right, so I think there's a handful of different options that would make sense for who these different multiversal invaders will be that are mentioned in these leaks that will apparently come to Earth 616 in Avengers Doomsday. Because it's already been confirmed that there will be other antagonists and villains who will appear in Doomsday besides just Doctor Doom. And we've heard a lot of rumors about who these other villains could be, from the multiversal Masters of Evil to the Illuminati to Doctor Doom having his own villainous Avengers team. Now, I kind of doubt that we'll see the multiversal Masters of Evil, so let's take them off the table. But I do think that it's likely that Doctor Doom will have both an army and his own team of direct backup, similar to how Thanos had an army of both Chitauri and Outriders, but then also had the Black Order. Now, as far as who Doctor Doom's army could be, I think it's very likely that Doom will have an army of Doombots, and that he could perhaps also have a following of Black Swans, similar to the army of Black Swans that he had in the comics. However, when it comes to Doom's backup team and who they could be, I think the two most likely options are either his own Illuminati team or his own Avengers team, or maybe even both. Because if we go back to the post-credit scene of Captain America Brave New World, we see Samuel Stearns give Sam this ominous warning about these multiversal invaders that will soon be coming to the 616 universe. And shortly after that movie came out, the director said that the original plan for that post-credit scene was going to be Samuel Stearns warning Sam about the Illuminati, but then Marvel Studios decided to keep Stearns' warning a bit more vague, most likely so they wouldn't be pinned down to one specific storyline in Avengers Doomsday. And back after Multiverse of Madness came out, there were several Marvel Studios writers and executives like Brad Winderbaum and Michael Waldron that confirmed that a new version of the Illuminati is something that the studio was discussing and that that team could possibly appear in a future project. Now, if we do see a new version of the Illuminati in Avengers Doomsday, I think there's several different ways that that team could be used in the story. Like, for example, maybe we could see a new version of the team from the 838 universe who have come to Earth 616 for revenge. Or, like I just said, another possibility is that they could be a team that is led by Doctor Doom, helping him to stop the incursions. Or maybe Doctor Strange could be the leader of the Illuminati, and it could be a team that he and Clea have assembled for them to stop the incursions. Or maybe it could even be a mix of both, where Doctor Strange and Clea are members of Doctor Doom's Illuminati team. But yeah, I'm just saying that there's several different ways and different iterations that we could see, and several different ways they could be introduced. But the point is that one possibility is that the Illuminati could be the team of multiversal invaders that end up coming to Earth 616 that have been mentioned in these different plot leaks. However, then the other possibility that I mentioned is Doom's Avengers. Because for months now, there's been all these different rumors that Doctor Doom will have his own villainous Avengers team working for him in the upcoming Avengers films. Now, most people online are assuming that this means that Doom will have a team of evil Avengers variants working for him, with members like the Maestro and Captain Hydra. And while I do think that something like that is definitely a possibility and that maybe that is something that we will see, I also wouldn't be surprised if the Russo brothers decided to save some of those bigger, crazier variants like that for Battleworld in the Secret Wars movie. So, on that note, I actually have a different theory on how potentially Doctor Doom could form his own Avengers team in Avengers Doomsday. Because something else we've heard in numerous different leaks and reports is that in Avengers Doomsday, the heroes of the 616 universe will end up being divided between those who are helping the TVA to protect Loki, and then those who will follow Doctor Doom. Because in recent interviews, the Russo brothers have said that Doctor Doom will not come off like a traditional evil villain, and that he will actually think of himself as the hero who is trying to make the hard choices to stop the incursions. And one thing I've mentioned before that you have to remember is that none of the heroes of the 616 universe are currently aware of the fact that Loki saved the multiverse back in Loki Season 2, and that he is the one who is now watching over it to keep it safe. So when it comes to the Avengers and all of the different big heroes from the 616 universe, they likely only remember Loki as the villain who tried to take over the world back during the Battle of New York in 2012. So, when we see Doctor Doom show up in Avengers Doomsday with the face of Tony Stark, and he says that he has a plan to stop the incursions and that his plan involves going after Loki, it's really not that difficult to see why certain heroes would end up siding with him and think that he's the good guy and that Loki is actually the bad guy. So, something I've been wondering about is that maybe when Doctor Doom arrives on Earth 616 in Avengers Doomsday, maybe what we'll see happen is he will end up just building his own Avengers team from the different heroes who choose to follow him. Because, I mean, something like this is probably going to end up being a big part of why Doctor Doom looks like Tony in the first place, because it'll at least partially be a part of his ploy to get those who knew the real Tony Stark to trust him and to work with him. Now, of course, when we hear these rumors and these reports about certain heroes deciding to side with Doctor Doom, the bigger question inevitably becomes, who will those characters be? Well, the one character that we've repeatedly heard will be working with Doctor Doom is Doctor Strange. And I do think that this makes sense because Doctor Strange did work with Doctor Doom to defeat the Beyonders and stop the Incursions in The Time Runs Out in Secret Wars comics. And then there was also that prematurely released concept art that dropped earlier this year where we saw Doctor Strange standing beside Doom on his throne, just like what we saw in the Secret Wars comics where Doctor Strange acted as Doom's right-hand man and sheriff of Battleworld. And just recently, over the past few days, there's actually been several news scoops that have come out from Daniel Richman, Jeff Snyder, and others saying that both Doctor Strange and Clea will somehow be affiliated with Doom and that they won't necessarily be villains in Doomsday, but that they will end up taking on more of an antagonist role. And again, this is something I think makes sense because with Doctor Strange, he's a pragmatist. So he would likely see Doctor Doom's plan to shred the multiverse down to just one timeline as a necessary evil in order to stop the Incursions. Now, if this happens, eventually I'm sure Doctor Strange and many of the other heroes who end up joining Doctor Doom will turn against him once we get to Avengers Secret Wars and they see just how diabolical he truly is. And from Doom's perspective, I do think it makes sense that Doom would want Doctor Strange on his side because, for one, of course, he's quite powerful, but also because a lot of the other heroes of the 616 universe look up to Doctor Strange because they know that he made the sacrifice to allow himself to be snapped away by Thanos for the greater good to save the world back during the events of Infinity War and Endgame. So with that in mind, Doctor Strange could be a huge resource for Doctor Doom because he could help convince other heroes to join Doom's side, like, for example, Peter Parker. Because one of the other rumors we've heard come out in numerous different scoops is that Spider-Man will be another one of the characters that will join up with Doctor Doom at some point in Avengers Doomsday. We've even actually heard rumors saying that Doctor Doom could show up at some point, maybe in the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Brand New Day. And again, this is another one of those rumors that would not shock me at all. Because for one, we know that Tony was Peter's idol. He adored Tony. So I think that this would obviously make him very susceptible to being seduced by the fact that Doom looks like Tony. Plus, another factor to consider is that Doom is very smart. So obviously, I think he will try to recruit characters that are very powerful so that they can go from being a threat to him to being a resource for him. But the other thing is, and this is a big one, is that I think that Doom will try to go after characters that are already a bit morally ambiguous, or characters that are currently a bit emotionally fragile and may already be under the influence of some kind of dark cosmic force. So for instance, to explain what I mean, at the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we see that scene where Doctor Strange has collapsed in the street and the third eye opens in his forehead, showing the audience that he has finally succumbed to the dark influence of the Darkhold, the same way that the Darkhold had a dark influence on Wanda. So once we see Doctor Strange again in Avengers Doomsday, he will presumably still be under the influence of the Darkhold because that storyline has not yet been resolved. So with the Darkhold being a factor, this could end up making Strange less sympathetic than he normally would be and more likely to give in to his dark side. And this is actually something very similar to what I think we could see happen with Spider-Man. Because when we see Peter again in Brand New Day, he will likely be in a very dark and lonely place. Because not only did he lose his Aunt May, but he also lost MJ and Ned and everyone he knows because of the spell that Doctor Strange cast to make everyone forget who he was at the end of No Way Home. So just that factor alone is likely enough to make Peter very sad and angry. But the other thing that I also think will be a very big factor on top of that is the symbiote suit. Because we all remember that a small bit of symbiote goo was left behind on Earth after Venom's short trip to the 616 universe in the post-credit scene of No Way Home. And the only thing that post-credit scene seemed to set up was for the symbiote to be introduced so it could somehow play a bigger role throughout the events of Brand New Day, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that the symbiote will likely play a significant role in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Because we know that Michael Mando will finally be returning to play Matt Gargan, aka Scorpion. And earlier this month, Michael Mando posted several pieces of comic art on his social media that showed the symbiote wrapping itself around Matt Gargan. And one of the other things that's been reported on recently from different set leaks is that apparently one of the things we will see early on in Brand New Day is a montage scene of Spider-Man battling against several different villains from his Rogues Gallery, including a short battle sequence of Matt Gargan in his classic Scorpion armor. But based on what's been reported, it sounds like Michael Mando will have a much larger role in the movie besides just this short montage sequence. So I think what we might end up seeing in Brand New Day is that we will see Matt Gargan in his Scorpion suit getting defeated by Spider-Man early on in the movie. And then as the movie goes on, Peter will have his own mission, getting sucked into whatever happens with the Hulk and the Punisher. And that meanwhile, while that's happening, Matt Gargan will somehow come into contact with the symbiote and will come back later on in the movie as Venom, or at least his version of Venom. And if something like this happens, then this will likely set up another battle between Peter and Matt Gargan later on in the film, where Peter will, of course, likely defeat Gargan and remove the symbiote, and this will then set up how Peter will eventually get the black symbiote suit. And that could be something that we see happen in Brand New Day, or maybe Marvel Studios will save the official reveal of the black suit for Avengers Doomsday. And of course, that's just rough speculation on how things could go down. But the point is that I do think that it's quite likely that Peter will have the symbiote suit by the time we get to Avengers Doomsday, and that this could possibly be another factor that Doctor Doom could use to bring Spider-Man over to his side. And this will likely be very similar to the effects that Doctor Strange will be experiencing being under the dark influence of the Darkhold. Because in the comics, the symbiote doesn't only make its host more powerful, but it also encourages them to give in to their baser instincts, amplifying their ego and aggression, while also pushing them to lean into their darker side. So yeah, after all the trauma that Peter has been through, after being snapped in Infinity War, and then losing Tony in Endgame, and then losing his Aunt May and Ned and MJ in No Way Home, it's not hard to envision how the symbiote suit could be the thing that pushes Peter over the edge to joining Doctor Doom's side. But anyways, then as far as some of the other characters that could potentially end up working with Doctor Doom, I think that the other new Avengers are potential possibilities because they will reportedly stay behind on Earth 616 to defend it from these multiversal invaders, while Yelena, Bucky, and Bob go to the Divergent X-Men universe to rescue Monica and stop the incursion. So specifically, I could see both Ava and John Walker maybe joining up with Doctor Doom because they do both have backgrounds as villains in the MCU. But with Alexei, I think he would probably be a bit harder to convince because he wouldn't want to betray Yelena. And then speaking of the new Avengers, another character we've heard may be sort of forced to work for Doctor Doom is Bob. And currently, I would say that Bob is definitely considered one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. You know, at least top 5, probably top 3. So Doctor Doom would definitely consider him. You know, he would definitely consider the Sentry to be one of his biggest threats, I think. Now, there's no concrete details regarding what will happen with Bob in the movie, but what has come out in different scoops is that Doctor Doom will somehow end up incapacitating Bob and then using him as an energy source, perhaps even to power his version of Battleworld, similar to how Doom used Molecule Man as an energy source of the Beyonders' powers to become God Emperor Doom in the Secret Wars comic. In fact, in that batch of leaked or prematurely released concept art that came out earlier this year for Avengers Secret Wars, one of the looser images we saw in that was a sketch of who appeared to be Bob chained up in some kind of, cave or dungeon. And while that concept art isn't confirmation of anything, that does seem to be at least a hint that this could be the direction that Marvel Studios and the Russo brothers will be going with for Bob in these upcoming Avengers movies. But moving on, then another character that I could also see possibly joining Doctor Doom maybe towards the end of Avengers Doomsday, or maybe even in the Secret Wars movie, is Namor. And, this might be more of an obvious one because Namor is one of those characters that flip-flops between being a hero and a villain all the time. And he does have a history of working with Doctor Doom numerous times in the comics, with the two of them oftentimes even being genuine friends, at least until they inevitably backstab one another. And according to the different leaks that I recapped at the beginning of the video, Namor will reportedly be one of the characters who will go on this mission into the X-Men universe along with the Avengers and the Fantastic Four that will eventually take those characters to the TVA by the end of the movie to help protect Loki against Doctor Doom. And if some version of that is true, then I could totally see a scenario playing out where Namor decides to betray the other heroes at some point at the end of the movie and switching his allegiance to Doctor Doom, because he would probably think that Doom's plan is more likely to succeed, and therefore he would likely see that as the best way for him to save his people of Talokan from the Incursions. Which, again, is fairly similar to what happened in the Time Runs Out comics, where Namor eventually ended up betraying the Illuminati and joined up with Thanos' Cabal because he thought that the Illuminati didn't have what it takes to make the hard choices to stop the Incursions. Then, of course, one of the other heroes that we've also repeatedly heard will be working with Doctor Doom in the upcoming Avengers films is Wanda Maximoff. And I don't want to get into a ton of details regarding how exactly Wanda will return in the upcoming Avengers films, because it is something I've talked about before, but also because I do have some new theories on that will inevitably take me down a whole nother long rabbit hole if I get into it right now. So I think maybe I'll save some of the meatier stuff on that for a future video. But one thing I do want to mention real quick that I think is interesting is that recently there's actually been some new reports suggesting that we might end up actually seeing at least two versions of Wanda in the upcoming Avengers movies, with one being the Prime version of Wanda from the 616 universe, with the second one then reportedly being a variant of Wanda that will be from the Divergent X-Men universe that Monica is currently stuck in, who will also end up being the daughter of Magneto. And, this wouldn't be super crazy because this is the multiverse saga. We know we're going to see a lot of different variants in these upcoming Avengers films, but also because even though 616 Wanda is a Nexus being, we still know that there are tons and tons of other Wanda variants that exist out there across the multiverse, because for one, we saw Wanda having multiple different dreams about those different variants, and then even dreamwalking into the 838 variant of Wanda in Multiverse of Madness. So if there is any truth to these different reports and rumors we've heard about this, then it's possible that the version of Wanda that could end up working with Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday won't actually be the 616 version of Wanda at all, and that it could possibly end up being this other variant of Wanda from the X-Men universe. Now, like I said, I don't want to dig into that too much because it opens a whole Pandora's box of different possibilities and theories. But the point is that if Wanda, or even a variant of Wanda, is also going to be a part of Doctor Doom's team, then this would make Doom's team extremely powerful and nearly unstoppable. Because just going off of what we're talking about, theory talk, but just going along with this, he could potentially have a version of Wanda Maximoff working for him who's extremely, extremely powerful, whether it's a variant or the 616 version. Not to mention that he would also have the powers, presumably, of Franklin and what he can do for him after taking Franklin in the Fantastic Four post-credit scene. Not to mention that Doom himself could even get the powers of the Sentry if he gets a control and grip over Bob, like we were talking about, which could be the answer for how Doom becomes God Emperor Doom for the Secret Wars movie. Then there's also Doctor Strange, who is cursed and emboldened by the power of the Darkhold, and then also potentially Spider-Man, who's infected with the power of his black symbiote suit. Not to mention that this is also on top of the possibility that he could also already have maybe his own team of different variants working for him, or some version of the Illuminati that he's assembled, as well as some kind of faceless army of Doombots or Black Swans or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of my rambling theory talk video on some of the different characters we could see working with Doctor Doom, making up his own team in Avengers Doomsday, and the possibility of who could be the multiversal invaders that could come to the 616 universe while the other Avengers and the Fantastic Four are off in the X-Men universe dealing with that incursion. However, one other possibility that I didn't really get into is that it's also possible that the multiversal invaders that were alluded to in these different plot leaks and who Samuel Stearns warned Sam about back in the post-credit scene of Captain America Brave New World could also possibly be just different variants of characters from other universes out in the multiverse who are also experiencing incursions. Like, for example, we know that the incursion that Clea came to get Doctor Strange's help with at the end of Multiverse of Madness is likely an incursion with the 838 universe that we saw introduced in that movie. So perhaps that storyline could come back around and somehow tie into the plot of Avengers Doomsday, where we see other different variants from that universe invading the 616 universe trying to stop the incursion, kind of similar to what happened in the first issue of Secret Wars from 2015, where the different heroes from the Ultimate Universe invaded Earth 616 because they were trying to save their worlds from the Final Incursion. And it wouldn't even necessarily have to be the 838 universe. I was just using that as an example. It could even be characters from multiple different universes. Because something else we've heard is that in Avengers Doomsday, that the 616 universe might not be experiencing incursions with just one universe, but possibly experiencing incursions with multiple different universes at the same time as the entire multiverse is about to be destroyed. So yeah, there are a lot of other possibilities for who these multiversal invaders will be, because this is the multiverse saga, and as I've said before, that kind of opens up infinite possibilities. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. Leave all of your own theories on what you think is going to happen in Avengers Doomsday, all that stuff. And I think we can wrap it up for this one. So if you enjoyed this video and you would like to support the channel, please leave a like or share the video. That really does help out a lot. And then also remember that if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment on this video, that I will be getting to all of those in a video just here in a few days at the end of the month. So yeah, if you'd like to leave a super thanks, those are also greatly appreciated. And then lastly, if you are new to the channel and a big Marvel and comic book nerd, you should definitely subscribe to the channel, because that is what we talk about here. All right, cool. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will be back soon with the next one.